Hi, this is Justin Colletti of SonicScoop, and today, as part of mixcon, we get to do a deep dive into the new Adam A-series of monitors. Adam was kind enough to send me some of their new A-series of monitors. I've got an A4V monitor up here and an A77H down here. And Adam is also kind enough to be one of the sponsors of mixcon and participate in the mixcon mega giveaway, where we are giving away more than $10,000 worth of free gear with multiple chances to win. So check out the link to that in the description and the comments down below, and good luck to you. I was super excited to get these in the mail and to put them up and to get started listening to them because I have been a big fan of Adam monitors for a long, long time. When I was kind of coming up in the world of New York City studios in the early 2000s, it felt like you would see the Adam S3A monitors in practically any studio worth talking about. They were an extremely popular and influential model of speakers back then, and they've been incredibly influential and popular to this day. The prior version of the speaker that's right over here on my shoulder, the older A7X, is probably one of the most popular, best-selling near-field monitors for smaller, serious studios. The AX series and the new A series really hit this sweet spot where you get tremendous professional level of quality at a really attractive price point. Of course, Adam makes super high-end stuff like the S series, and they make really affordable entry-level stuff like the T series. But the A series right in between is probably the most relevant line they make to so many of you watching this, and I have a good feeling that the new A7V is going to continue being one of the most popular pro-level studio monitors out there, and for good reason. We'll talk a little bit just in general about why I like Adam speakers and why I think they're so popular, but more importantly for today, we're going to be taking this deep dive into the A series and learning about what's new with them, what separates them from the prior AX series, and why they could be interesting to you. I think a lot of what I like so much about the Adam sound has a lot to do with their high frequency driver, this ribbon tweeter that's in every one of the Adam designs. This ribbon tweeter really does give the speaker both clarity and detail in the high end while making the high end smooth and easy to listen to, never harsh or annoying or brittle or feeling like it's going to fry your ears off. Very unfatiguing speakers to listen to while still offering you all the clarity you need to make really crucial mix decisions. Their driver and cabinet designs are also really great. They really allow you to get very low in frequency response for the size of the drivers they have, while being really surprisingly resonance-free for a ported speaker design. So they really get the bottom end right, the mid-range right, and the top end right. What more could you want out of set of speakers? For my personal taste, they've always been among my favorite brands out there. And today we're going to talk about what separates this new A-series line from the prior AX line and just what makes it interesting in general. We'll talk about some of the upgrades to the line overall, and then we'll go through each of the different models in this line to help you figure out what type of user each type of speaker is good for. I've got the A7V over my shoulder up top here, V being for vertical, and the 77H, H for horizontal down here, which is a midfield design. And this one in particular, the 77H, has been really upgraded from its prior version, and it includes now a new mid-frequency driver, making it a true three-way monitor, unlike the prior A77X. But more on that in a minute. There's also now an A4V, a smaller version of this, and there's an A44H, a smaller version of this wide midfield style speaker that I have down here at the bottom. And there's a very new design from Adam called the A8H that I'm really interested and really excited about. Let's start off by talking about what is new across the entire line. And for this series, there's been some significant upgrades from the last AX series. And you can see one of them right on the front of this A7V monitor, V meaning vertical. And that is that there's a true waveguide around the tweeter now, which is really going to help with two things: the dispersion of the speaker, how wide it can clearly and properly throw some of that high frequency information. And also, I find that a really properly well-designed waveguide will not only make the sweet spot wider, but will also enhance the stereo impression you get right in the sweet spot. That you'll just have a more detailed and precise stereo image, as well as that stereo sweet spot being a little bit wider. So nice upgrade to have there. They've upgraded all of the drivers in these monitors, but another major thing you'll find here is on the back of the monitor. If I grab this A7 and turn it around, you will see that for the first time, there are some digital controls in here and an Ethernet port right on the back of this monitor. You have a more sophisticated and now digitally controlled EQ than ever before, and there's also a special button here to change the voicing on the speaker. That voicing select button has 3 modes: pure, which is a flat response; UNR, which stands for uniform natural response; and then external, which integrates with SonarWorks natively inside the speaker. And we're going to talk about some of the advantages with that because they are many. But real quick on this new switch that's been added, the pure and UNR selection. UNR is kind of like the classic Adam sound. It is not perfectly flat. It's tailored ever so slightly to give it a character that's very similar to even the earliest Adam speakers that were made, and voiced similarly to that same UNR setting on the S series. And if you were to put this speaker into UNR mode, it would actually sound closest to the prior AX series that way. So this option to now put it into a pure mode where the frequency response is even flatter than before, that is new to the new version of the A series. So you can either get that classic, smooth, pretty pleasant Adam voicing out of the UNR mode, or put it into an even flatter pure mode. So you can select between the two. But if you click that button again and put into external mode, you can have an external speaker calibration reference. So basically what you can do is you can tune your room using SonarWorks, get an exact multi-sampled picture of what the frequency response is like with these speakers in this room, but then instead of running SonarWorks off of your computer as a plugin or even as an app that runs on the operating system in your computer, you can take your calibration file and load it through an Ethernet cable right into these speakers. So the calibration happens within the speaker itself, which is really amazing feature. This makes it so much easier to switch speakers while using something like SonarWorks, not always having to have a system extension or a plugin in your DAW to use SonarWorks. So it is a step further in the right direction of making a system like SonarWorks even more seamless for multi-speaker systems. There's a little bit more going on here too. You can now have up to 6 frequency bands for you to do your own custom EQ curves in here. And instead of having to control all of this on the back of the actual speaker, you now have an app you can use called A-Control, which allows you to adjust the EQ, adjust the voicing, adjust the trim, load your calibration files, and so on. So really great enhancement as far as digital control goes. But some of the other enhancements are even more significant in some of the other speakers in the A-series line. With the new A7V, V again being for vertical, you really have the same speaker as the prior A7X, but with an additional voicing mode, additional digital control, the built-in speaker calibration, upgraded drivers, and the new waveguide around the tweeter for even better stereo imaging. But with some of the other monitors in this series, the changes are even bigger. And that is especially the case with the new 77H, which I have down here. The prior A77 speaker was a kind of cool concept. It was a small-ish midfield style speaker with 2 woofers on it and then a tweeter in the center. But this new A77H adds another driver. It is now a true 3-way speaker design. And for me, that is big. I'm a huge fan of 3-way speaker designs, and in just a sec, I'll tell you why. But just so you can understand the difference in design, the prior A77s had 2 main woofers, and it was almost like a 2.5-way speaker. You had one driver that kind of just put out your low frequencies up to the low mids, one that was kind of full range up until the tweeter took over, and then you had the tweeter. But here you now have two dedicated low frequency drivers, and you have a dedicated mid frequency driver in the middle, and then the tweeter. These two big drivers are going to take care of everything from 0 up to 400 hertz, and then from 400 hertz to 3K is handled by this mid driver, and then above that we're switching over to the tweeter. And this kind of three-way design really brings exceptional amount of detail to the mid-range. I find that once you go to mixing on three-way speakers, it's hard to go back. As much as I've loved mixing on my A5Xs, and I get why so many people have loved mixing on their A7Xs, and I get that so many people are going to love these A7Vs, if you have more to spend, three-way designs really do give you more focus and more detail in the mid-range. It can be really helpful. That said, two-way speakers have their own fans too. A lot of people will say, hey, end listeners are basically all going to be listening on two-way speakers, so I want to mix through a two-way speaker. And that is totally valid as well. And you can get a lot of bang for your buck out of a two-way design. They're always going to be more cost-effective than a three-way design. But one of the other big differences besides just two-way versus three-way is kind of the size that these are meant to work for in a studio. The A7Vs are really meant to be kind of a personal monitor, a near-field monitor, which can be absolutely great for detailed mixing one person. But when you need to fill up a room with more sound and get a wider sweet spot, wider dispersion, you have 2 or 3 people listening together, maybe some people on a couch in the back of the room, you often need bigger speakers. And that's where something like a midfield, like the A77, is going to come in. If you have a whole band coming into the room to listen to a track together, the extra coverage and the extra level and the extra wide sweet spot you might get out of a midfield design is going to be extremely helpful. Whereas if you're just a solo person in a smaller room or a smaller setup, mixing on just a near field is going to be ideal for a lot of people. The same concept we see here with the A7 and the A77 also carries down to the smaller versions of these, the A4 and the A44. Both of those are similar designs. The new A4V has kind of replaced the old Adam A3X and A5X and found a sweet spot just between the two of them. I was a big fan of my old A5Xs, and although I have not yet gotten a chance to compare the new A4Vs to the A5Xs, word on the street is that they sound way bigger than they should for a 4-inch driver. And the way they seem to spec out as far as frequency response suggests that they go surprisingly low for a 4-inch speaker, with useful information as low as the 52 hertz and up range. I was always amazed at how deep my 5s went, and with the updated drivers, the A4Vs should be in a similar ballpark, especially on paper, and from what I'm hearing from people in practice, that they're also shocked by how deep and how effective such a small speaker can be. The A44s take a similar concept and get you 2 4-inch drivers in a layout similar to this A77, just with smaller drivers. That one is a two-way design, but for where you need a really compact midfield design, that's where that speaker is meant to come in. It's actually designed so that it can fit right into a 19-inch rack space. And to my understanding, they really made it with the idea of broadcast and broadcast trucks as well, being the kind of situation where you might see these A44s happen quite a lot, where you need a small compact speaker, but it should provide ample coverage for not just one person, but 2 or 3 people or more making decisions together in a kind of midfield setup. Both those 4-inch designs do go surprisingly low into the 50s in the case of the A4V and down to the 40 hertz range in the case of the A44Hs. But of course, they can go even lower than that. You just add on a sub, and there's even some retailers that are now selling bundles of these A4 and A44s coupled with the subs. And you can find the same thing for the A7s as well. So if you're in a much bigger studio and you have the kind of client base that really wants to hear the low end going super deep, you can add a sub onto these A7s and A77s as well. Now there's still one more speaker in this line I have not brought up, and this is the one that is the most different, new, and unusual design for Adam, and that is the A8H. This one's really exciting. It has an 8-inch driver, a dedicated mid-frequency driver, and the ribbon tweeter, making it a true three-way design that can work as both a near-field and a mid-field monitor. So if you're in a reasonably large room, these A8Hs really could be your main near-field mixing monitors, but they can also have a wide enough sweet spot and throw sound far enough into the room to really act as a midfield monitor for multiple listeners as well. So it's kind of a best of both worlds idea. It goes really deep into the 30 hertz range by itself. It throws out a lot of SPLs, and of course you can add a sub to that one as well. I'd love to get into the room with one of those. Those are being pre-ordered really fast. People seem to be super excited about that one. As soon as I saw it, I was like, man, this is awesome that Adam is making this. Of course, why didn't we think of this before? It's absolutely a great form factor and type of design for Adam to be getting into. And with that, I think we've covered just about the entire new A-series line. That's what it's about. You've got now upgraded drivers. You've got the new waveguide for the tweeter. You've got the digital controls on the back, which you can access with an app on your desktop computer for increased capabilities in EQ setting, in changing the voicing of the speaker, and even using SonarWorks calibration built right into the speaker itself. Very excited about that. But you also have these new sizes and designs. The A77 has turned from a kind of 2.5-way design into now a true 3-way design, adding a dedicated mid-range driver, making it almost like a baby version of the famous S-series monitors from Adam that you see in so many of the world's best studios. The A8H is a totally new design, as is the A4 and the A44. They are slightly different tweaks to the kinds of speakers that Adam has been offering before, but now just dialed in even more to really suit the kinds of end users there are out there in the world. The one model that has remained the most unchanged is probably the most popular one on the line this year, the A7V, formerly the A7X. And there's really nothing about this that shouldn't outperform the prior version. It can go even flatter than the prior version. It can also sound just like the prior version with that UNR voicing engaged. And it can support SonarWorks speaker calibration right inside natively in the speaker itself. Really exciting stuff. I have been a fan and a lover of Adam for many years, and this new A-series is no exception. They're an absolute joy to listen to. I think you should get into the room with some of these and check them out for yourself. If you want a monitor that has a lot of detail, that really brings the mid-range into special focus and doesn't get fatiguing or harsh or annoying in the top end, the Adams are absolutely a great way to go. And the A-series really makes their professional level of quality attractively priced for the small, serious studio. Big thanks to Adam for being part of MixCon. Definitely check out the MixCon Mega Giveaway. If you haven't, we are giving away more than $10,000 worth of free gear. So check that out in the link in the comments and the description down below. We're also going to have a live Q&A with some of the folks from Adam to talk to them about these speaker designs, speaker placement, selecting the right size and type of speaker for your room, and a whole bunch more. So look for the link to that in the comments in the description down below, or go to mix-con.com. That's mix-con.com, where you can sign up for that or any of the other live premieres and live Q&As for this year's MixCon. All right, thanks for hanging out with me. This has been Justin Colletti of SonicScoop. See you next time.